Good evening. Welcome to Larry Rinker Golf Live. Hope you're having a great night. It's been quite a few days the last week, so I just hope everyone is staying healthy and safe and pretty crazy out there. But I'm joined tonight by my friend, Scott Munroe, top 100 teacher. He teaches at the Nantucket Golf Club in the summertime, and he's also at the Boca Raton Hotel in the fall, winter, and spring. And Money, that's what all your friends call you. Welcome to the show, buddy. Great to see you.
Thanks, Larry. Appreciate it. It's going to get crazy in here in a minute.
Yeah, it's going to get a little crazy, but thoughts and prayers to everyone. And I think it's really a time we need to come together and love one another. And it's a time of just doing that. And
time of change.
Yeah, it is a time of change. Well, you and I had an interesting thing happen at the PGA show back in January. And I had a gentleman contact me that is a musician, classically trained pianist. And pretty interesting. You know, we get these funny emails sometimes from people. But I pursued it, and sure enough, he was real. And we met, and we got to spend some time. You got to spend some time with him. And if we go back to our screen here.
Yeah, it was, it's one of those things you never know when something's going to come around that, you know, a lot of times, sometimes in golf, some of the best instruction or the best lessons you're ever going to get are from people that don't play golf.
Yeah, and that happens. But here's a picture of you and I and Chia Chou on the right, and then Jurgen on the left, his business partner. And we got together, and basically, as a musician, I always wondered how I'm going to tie music into my tempo and rhythm on my golf swing. So 4/4 time, 3/4 time. Snead talked about 3/4 time, waltz time. That helped him. That never connected with me. So Chia Chou had a whole little different spin on it. And it's pretty interesting what he did. And here's what ended up happening.
You got to tell everybody too, Larry, this is in the pouring rain that we're doing this right after 3 days of the PGA show.
Yeah, and there's a picture of Chia Chou. We're going to play this video, but classically trained pianist. He's done this in tennis. He's not a golfer, but I said to him, I get stuck over the ball. My brain says, take the club back, and it doesn't move under pressure. So this is what he wanted my timing to be.
7-iron. You my T-pow.
And so there it was.
7-iron.
T-pow.
You my T-pow.
So the U, what he wanted with the U was he wanted to imagine that there was movement coming to the ball. That's the U, and then the my is taking the club back, and then the T-pow is point to point. So T-pow, boom, right there. And that's what he was saying there. So we'll play it one more time here, but you can see how
7-iron. You my T-pow.
So pretty interesting, and all of a sudden I had this rhythm.
You my T-pow.
That really matched the tempo and timing of my swing. Now, you and I both know he watched me swing and watched me hit, and he does this in about 5 minutes. So what happened next? You went and tried this timing that I was doing, didn't you?
Well, I was getting warmed up for my turn, and I was doing yours, and it was not working at all. I said, why did I stay here? This is crazy. And it's a great lesson for everyone because, you know, when you listen to someone else's lesson, if it's not exact, a lot of times it's not exactly the same, but everybody wants to get, you know, You were hitting the ball so well that I wanted to try that.
Yeah, so it was interesting how, now all of a sudden we've got this, now he's watching you hit balls and saying to you, okay, what are you going to do? And so this is what he told you.
So this is for Scott. Me. Yo.
And what
So
you
this is for
shared
Scott.
with him that you wanted to be able to do
Me.
is you wanted to get your right hip started and turn better, didn't you?
Yes.
And that is something that as upper core players is probably the most important thing on the backswing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was kind of stuck, and I wanted a thought to do it, but I had a thought with the rhythm. And that's the whole, this is the magic of this entire thing is, I mean, all of your listeners could go out and use one of those today, tonight, tomorrow, where they could get some results. It's just fantastic. It's one of those things where, and again, Larry, I was telling him, I've been telling people to do 1, 2, bounce hit, which I've been using since the 70s, the inner game of tennis, the inner game of golf. And the first thing he said, he goes, no, that doesn't work. And I go, okay, I'm all ears.
Yeah, well, I'm going to play that again just because, it was so different than what mine was.
So this is for Scott. Me. Yo.
So it's interesting that
So
yours
this is for
was
Scott.
So yours was, mine was point to point, but yours was Hume. And by Hume, it's like a flow. Mine was a point and a point. And when I went to the driver, he wanted my T-pow to be even faster. And when I did that, what happened? I got more speed, didn't I?
Yeah, you hit some unbelievable shots.
So pretty interesting that all of a sudden I had this command, you, my, and my's when the club goes back, T-pow, and then yours was me,
Yep.
you.
And I asked him too, Larry, one thing I just remembered, I actually remember last night, is that he wanted us to say it out loud so he could hear it and we could hear it, but then eventually we could say it to ourselves when we play.
Yeah, he wanted it to be kind of just there, a little not so conscious.
Is that what you guys do in music? Like you say stuff out loud and then just kind of hum it to yourself?
I find when I'm playing an instrument, the minute I think I'm out of time, I probably am.
Right.
And it's almost like you feel it. It's interesting about music is we can look at music and we can say where the kicks are. Like if you're counting 8 notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you're going to hit, let's just say the notes are hitting somewhere on those 8 places, those 8 notes. But you actually can hear it and feel it and play it and not have to read it. And in golf, we can understand all this stuff that you and I have studied our whole life about the golf swing. But at the end of the day, it's kind of a feel, and we don't have to think exactly what we're doing, do we?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've been using it ever since January. I haven't got to play that much, but the times that I've played this year I've actually played the best golf. And of course, you gave me we were talking about the upper core swing. We made some changes to my swing, got some bigger grips. I could hold the club lighter, get more speed. But along with being set up properly and using this, I've played some of the best golf I've ever played, even when I played. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, it's interesting. You sent me some video here, and we can look at your
video.
No,
whoa, wait a minute.
Here it is.
Boca Raton.
So first off, let's just talk about the setup. So you're set up here with kind of a closed stance, which that's good for an upper core player because that helps you turn that right hip. And the upper core player turns the right hip the most. and moves the least amount laterally. So we'll bring you up here, both face on and down the line here. But you can see your setup. Looks pretty good. And here you go back, and you can see the right hip's turning, and you're getting back. And I don't know if you had that camera exactly in the right place to show you on playing because you look under. It could have been a little above it. But notice it impact how little your hips are rotated here. So you're not very rotated impact, are you?
No.
And that's upper core. And you can see, I don't know if you had your phone on a tripod when you filmed this or on your bag or something, but you can see that you have a little bit of lateral movement here going back, don't you?
Yeah.
And so if you look at me, are you a 7? You're
Yes.
a 7, right? So 7 means that you're kind of a blend between an upper mid-core player, but you're going to see me, my right hip turns, and you can see how little I move laterally.
Right.
So I'm a 9. I'm at the top of the core. We'll show you some slides here in a minute that show the core regions. But your pivot, you're going to have a little more lateral movement than I have. And now I'm going to have this little shift and rotate into a jump. And look how much I've jumped. Look where my head is. I'm on my tippy toes. I was like this in high school, Money.
Nice.
And then I was told, oh, I need to hit it with a flat left foot. That one's kind of been debunked, hasn't it?
Yeah, real big time.
So, and then as we
Watch
look
the,
at
watch
you,
the watch the national long drive and see who's
yeah.
with a flat left foot.
And so if I were giving you a lesson and knowing what I know, I would say, even though your feet are closed, looks like your hips are slightly open at address. And that is what I call the first kryptonite, where then you move a little too much laterally on the backswing. And now when you have your little shift and start turning, you don't get home, do you?
Nope.
You don't get where I'm at. And we'll be not as much laterally with the lower body with the driver versus a 7-iron. But you don't get home, and then you end up spinning. You end up spinning a little too much here coming through, don't you?
Yep.
Now, it's good you're behind it. That's going to help you hit up on it. But I just see your weight going to your left heel a little early there. So you can see your weight, and you can see me if I come around to where you are. You can see I'm coming back down to earth here in that left foot.
Right.
And that's one thing that's interesting, talking with James Lights about how we use the ground, is the one thing they've learned having the plates for both the left and the right foot is we jump more off of our lead foot than we do our rear foot. That's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That we're really posturing up.
You can't jump off your lead foot if you're behind the ball. If you sway off of it, though.
Well, it's hard to jump out of your heels, isn't it? If your weight's in your heels, you're not going to jump. That's why when we see, a low core player, if I pull up like a Jordan Spieth here, if I can find him, here he is. But if we look at a Jordan Spieth, you're going to see as he goes through his weight, look where his weight is. It's in his heel. Look how rotated he is.
Yep.
So anybody wondering, this is low core right here with Spieth. And he's going to be the most rotated at impact. And I'm sorry, but nobody can jump out of their heels, can they? You can jump out of the ball of your foot, but you can't. So, and that's why the low core player uses verticals the least. Upper core players use it the most. It really comes down to balance in the feet, Money. And if I pull up some of our slides that I have here going forward with our PowerPoint presentation.
Well, I think too, Larry, is where we started tonight. Is if you add what we were talking about with the technique, along with what your song's supposed to be, everything can change. I mean, you can hit some of the best shots you ever hit.
So here's a slide of Wright Balance 9 core region. So what we've been talking about over here is that the upper core is this 9, 8, 7. And I'm a 9, I'm the top of it. And then Money, you're a 7. So you're not going to jump as much as I am. You're going to move a little more laterally in the backswing than I am. You're going to have your hips a little more rotated impact than I do. And when we're looking at Jordan Spieth, see, he's down here. He's low core.
Right.
And then mid core, that's what everybody's teaching. Take your average tour player. What's the average hip rotation and impact for an average tour player, Money?
What is it? What depends on the player.
But the average is like 40 degrees,
30, yeah.
degrees, something like
Yep.
that. That's mid-core, and you and I are nowhere near it rotated that much. And then we look at Spieth, and I think he's somebody that I never realized he rotated that much until I watched his videos and saw it. Because it's hard to see this stuff with your naked eye, isn't it?
It sure is. And when you don't measure people and you try to guess on stuff, sometimes you'll miss out.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we see a lot with juniors is we see them with quite a bit characteristics. They can have a really strong grip. So a strong grip matches Jordan Spieth over here. And the thing about it is, that's one thing I would recommend to him, and I think they're doing that. I read where they were trying to strengthen his grip. But if we look at this this graph here, where we're showing the 3 core regions, we really get 5 measurements: height, weight, shoulder, sternum width, shoe size, and that gets put into an algorithm. And that algorithm spits out these stance widths you see on the yardstick where I'm standing. And upper core players are going to have their weight in the balls of the feet. Mid-core over the arches, mid-core is over the laces there, and low core is over the arches. So low core is over the arches. And you can see I'm standing in my 9 stance width, which correlates with the 9 on the other side. And so it's pretty cool, Money. It's actually a strength test when we do this. So where do you have the most strength? You went through this with my sister down at the South Florida PGA with Doc Wright, and then we kind of did it again in Orlando during the PGA show. But pretty interesting how, you know, when we see this stuff that, you know, it's a way for us to actually not be guessing, isn't it?
Yeah, and the thing that I like about it is even if you do it a little bit, you get some results. But it's like anything else, you have to keep going over and over. And we made some little adjustments, and we changed the grip size a little bit. And I mean, it's just, and then we add Chow to it. I mean, it's, you know, people don't realize that their best golf is in the future here. And I don't care if you're a tour player or an 18 handicap, you can hit the ball better, and you can do it quickly if you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, it doesn't take you standing on the range and beating ball after ball after ball. Because I think a lot of us, we end up where we're going to have one thing that's the cancer in your swing. And for me, the cancer was I kept thinking I needed to lag and rotate. And I'm showing a low core player characteristics here. Really, grip. How do you pivot? They pivot around their trail leg. And in that pivot, they have the most lateral motion with the least rotation in the backswing. And then, as we said, their hips are rotated the most at impact, and they have the latest release. And then you look at that mid-core player, they're kind of the hybrid between the low and upper core player. And so their grips between the lower and upper, their center pivot, they pivot between their feet. So you have kind of a mid-core pivot with what you're doing. And then the hips are rotated that 40 to 45 degrees. I've given a range there. And then they have the mid-release point. And then the majority of players are upper core. And we have the weakest grip. We pivot around that front leg, least lateral, most rotary motion on the backswing, hips rotated the least, and we're also have the earliest release. So just
now, do you think that I could launch up like you do? I want to get air.
Well, it's interesting you asked that, because I had someone that contacted me recently in the last few days that I was showing. He asked how he uses the ground as an upper core player, and it was interesting how I believe it's natural. So for me, I'm not trying to rotate and into a jump. Now, I'll say I'll play around with it, and I'll have times where, okay, I'm going to try and get a little more pop on the ball. And I might do it once or twice on the golf course on a par 5 that's got a more open tee shot for me. But the truth is, if you get the correct stance width, if you get the pivot correct, you get that initial move from the top, things should happen.
I thought you were going to ask me if I lost 30 pounds, maybe.
If you lost 30 pounds. Yeah. No, I'm not going there, Money. I'm not going to say if you lost 30 pounds. But I just wanted to show for our audience. So we're looking at Jordan Spieth here. You can see where he's at. I've got a friend of mine, Kathleen, who is my low core. And low core players, whether it's Lee Trevino, David Duval, Paul Azinger, they're going to have that more open stance because their grip is the most under and they have the strongest grip. They are going to swing out on the ball the most. They're going to swing out. Their path is going to be the most to the right. And so if you look at her setting up to a driver now, you can certainly see that when she gets to impact, she's a freak show. Look how rotated she is.
Yeah, wow.
And when you look at her with this iron, I mean, this is something, I call it freak because I've only measured 12 out of 850 that do this. But look at the grip, look at the shaft lean, look at the hip rotation. And when we talk about release point, it's where does the right arm straighten? And in her case, it doesn't happen to way, way up in here. Now, the pretty swings, the mid-core players, that would be my sister Lori. And we've been kidded, Lee and I have been kidded our whole life about she has the prettiest swing. Here's a mid-core player, and you're going to see that little bit more lateral motion going back, the shift, and she's going to be, those hips are going to be rotated about 40 to 45 degrees. And notice where her arms straighten, probably right in here. I kind of draw this line, Money, of where does the shaft line up with the chest.
Right.
And I keep joking with her because her release gets a little earlier and earlier. I tell her as she's getting older, she's moving closer to being an upper core player. Because she's a 6 on that graph. But then you look at me, and we kind of already looked at this, but you're going to see me jump, and you're going to see there's impact, and then just a couple clicks past. This is my release point, and you can see how close that is to the ball. So the upper core player's releasing in here, the mid-core player's releasing in here, and the low-core player's releasing the latest. And I got to say, with Wright Balance, Money, the matches match up, whether you're upper, mid, or low core. And those things we talked about, where's your grip? The upper core player, we release the earliest, we're going to have the weakest grip. Some players even have the right hand on top. My brother Lee does. And I think great players, Money, find this stuff in the ground. They find their stance width. They find their grip. They find their postures. They find it.
Well, and nowadays, the whole model's changed. I mean, what you said earlier before we started, this crazy world. Well, you know what? Everything's changed. In the last 2 months, the whole world's changed. Everything's changed. And I think golf's going to be the same way, where it's not that hard. If you're, beating balls all day, because in the old days, people didn't know, they didn't have this information. So some guys got lucky and some didn't. But just imagine the people that are on the verge of doing well. If they had the right information, everything could have changed, especially great players and tour players like yourself coming down the stretch. I've never thought that tour players choked, but their setup and their philosophy choked. Like they had one little thing that caused them. So you could look at Greg Norman, you could look at some good players that, he choked on the last hole. Well, I don't know. The pressure of not being matched out. You know what I mean?
Well, as I said, my story is I kept seeing myself standing up. You can see it coming out of posture, not having a lot of shaft lean, and really looking at my sister's swing and mid-core swings, the pretty ones, and thinking, I need to look like that. That's going to make me hit it better. Because if I have that forward shaft lean, that means that I'm stabilizing the face more. That's why everybody's that I'm going to hit it straighter. I'm going to hit it more consistent. But if I stand up and people say upper core players are flippers, oh, I can't control the face as well. Well, I know that's not true now. So, you know,
one time Lexi Thompson, I talked to Lexi Thompson's dad, and she had never had a golf lesson. And he just told her to kill it. And if you come up, get airborne. And if you look at her swing and then you look at some of the long and she hits it, you know, she's one of the longest hitting ladies and she gets air.
Well, you said it earlier. What about all these long drive guys? They're all getting air, and most of them are mid-core because they're using their ground forces, horizontals, verticals, and rotary.
They're double dipping.
Yeah, they are. So they're all jump. And that's one thing you can notice different between a mid and a low core player. Dustin Johnson doesn't jump. Jordan Spieth doesn't jump. But Justin Thomas, Cameron Champ, Brooks Koepka, they get air, don't they? Rory, all those guys get air. So because of that, and it's probably the mid-core guys, you know, people ask me all the time, well, which one can you hit it the furthest with? And it's probably the mid-core player, but shoot, Kenny Perry, he's upper core. I watched him in his late 40s fly 3-woods 260 yards in the air off the ground at Memorial and up at the Buick Open. So don't tell me you can't get distance. I mean, he was long.
I played with Peter Sr. in Australia, and same deal. I mean, I played him a couple times, and every time I played him, I watched him.
There's a perfect example of somebody standing straight up coming into the ball.
Yep.
You know, and it's like this early extension has become this new thing. Oh, I early extended. You know, I came out of my posture. You know, I'm so sick of hearing that because
it's new.
I come out. I jump. I come out. Well, Money, been great having you on the show tonight, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. This is fantastic. Great job.
It's always great to have you on. And just going to go back to the slideshow if I can find it. But anyway, just want to run through a few of these here. But we're kind of out of this. So I'll stop this share. But anyway, great having you on.
Thank you.
Best. When are you headed to Nantucket?
We're waiting for the governor to decide in Massachusetts that you can give golf lessons on the grass. So I'm probably going to be leaving this weekend. It looks like they're going to be able to give lessons next week. So everything's going to start coming around. Well,
I wish you safe travels, and you know, just want to put something up here for people so they can find you and see where you're at here, and you know, just go through this. We've got Father's Day gift certificates, by the way, if anybody would like to buy them. I know you're offering those. There you go, Boca Raton Hotel, scottmunroegolf.com. That's where they can find you, and here's where you can find me. I'm waiting to head out to Red Sky. Looking forward to going out there. Looks like I'm going to be leaving June 22nd. Still waiting for some things to open up out there. But Money, great having you on tonight, buddy. All the best.
Thank you. Thanks, Larry. Appreciate it.
I'd like to thank my sponsors, Tideless FootJoy, the Ritz-Carlton Golf Club Orlando, the Red Sky Golf Academy in Vail, Colorado. Catch us every Thursday, 7:30 to 8, right here on Facebook Live at Larry Rinker Golf.